Check out Bitcoin prices this morning. They're falling sharply, dipping below the 59,000 level in overnight trading. The sell-off was said to be sparked by a wave of leverage-driven liquidation after a drop in Ethereum. Joining us now to discuss the crypto market is Anthony Pompliano, founder and CEO of Professional Capital Management. We could probably go back in time with almost identical price movements to identical levels, and we've had you on in the last 3 months talking about it. We've seen a break under 59 a couple of times, only to go back above 64, 65. What do we make of it?
Well, I think it's just sideways summer, right? You know, people kind of saw this huge run up after the Bitcoin ETF got approved earlier this year. A lot of capital flew into that, both retail and some institutional. And when the summer hit, people, I think, kind of just went away. And so as we've traded sideways, there has been volatility. But I do think that if you look at the historical kind of bull run cycles, kind of end of Q3 into Q4 is when things start to pick up, and you'll start to see, you know, kind of the asset price rise from there.
I mean, because some people, no matter what, hold Bitcoin, does it not take a lot of selling to have pretty big moves in the price? Is it like on thin volume, would you say?
You definitely have an illiquid asset, right?
Is it?
A lot of times, depending on which metric you look at, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, it could be 60 or 70% of the assets being held by people who are long-term oriented.
That's what I mean.
And so it's very different than, you know, many other financial assets, but also leverage has definitely increased in the use in the market. And so whenever you see kind of an illiquid asset, you get, you know, a good amount of leverage in there. It can move in both directions with more volatility. And if you compare, you know, Bitcoin to maybe something like gold, they're both sound money principles, but Bitcoin's 1 year volatility is 0.35, gold's is 0.09. And so that volatility is part of what draws people, that they want the upside of something like Bitcoin, but they still want the sound money principle.
So they still want to trade it. What will Bitcoin's reaction be if the economy gets hit hard, as Barry Knapp was just saying he thinks will happen? What will Bitcoin's reaction be if there's a soft landing?
Yeah, so I think that the more people talk about a potential recession, the less likely that it is that we're going to have a recession, right? People are kind of eyes wide open. They're paying attention to that. And the other thing is, you know, a lot of us criticize the Fed, and rightfully so for many things. But one thing that they did get right is they've kind of reloaded their ammunition. And so now we've got rates over 5%. They've sold off $2 trillion or so off their balance sheet. If we get to some sort of market slowdown or downturn, the Fed seems to be more trigger happy. They're a little bit more sensitive. You saw this with the 2 emergency rate cuts in 2020. And I do think that they have that ammunition now to fight that market downturn.
But what's it mean for Bitcoin? Because I still can't figure out like what the correlations are necessarily. It doesn't always do what I expect it to do.
Yeah, I think that if cheap capital floods into the market, people will go and they will push out on the risk curve. The nice thing about Wall Street is that Bitcoin is still considered one of the riskier assets in their portfolio. And so I think assets will flow there. But also, I think that if you look at the crypto industry, they look at this as an asset that they buy and they hold. They do not sell this asset. And so it'll remain illiquid. You'll have Wall Street kind of allocating to it. And as we've seen, when interest rates have gone down or cheap capital has flooded into the market in the past, Bitcoin has done very, very well.
What happened with Ethereum?
I think that with Ethereum, people are still trying to figure out what is it and should I have it in my portfolio or not, right? You know, if you look at the ETF launch, kind of had a big first week or so, but you don't hear it talked about nearly as much as you hear people talking about Bitcoin. And so some people think it's a world computer. Some people think of it as ultrasound money. Some people think of it as, you know, name your other narrative. But I think that the lack of a clean story means that interest is waning to some degree. And if you go back and you look at its financial performance, you know, it's been at $2,400, give or take, for quite a while now. And so while Bitcoin, Solana, others are up considerably during that time frame, Ethereum is essentially flat, which I think, you know, again, kind of pulls away from capital flowing into the asset.
When the NASDAQ sold off and the VIX went up, so you see people sell things that they have to pay margin calls, and Bitcoin got hit very hard. Now the NASDAQ hasn't sold off and it's getting hit again. So whenever someone needs liquidity for whatever reason, they're going to go to the store or to the bank of Bitcoin that they have. It doesn't seem to be correlated to anything. It's correlated to risk, and it goes down when there's a de-risking. And then it might go down I guess it could go down if gold went down, or if it looks like For example, if the Fed isn't going to cut, it seems to go down. Then when it is going to cut, I don't know, it can go down for any reason. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it at this point. They're small moves, though.
Yeah, I think for years, the promise of Bitcoin has been that it is a non-correlated asymmetric asset. And it's been very attractive to people.
Is that true?
Well, it's definitely less correlated than, say, stocks or other types of assets. Now, one of the things that has confused people is during moments of crisis, whether it's COVID or other moments, correlations spike towards one. And so you see these kind of sell-offs and people say, oh, maybe the non-correlation days are over. But I do think that part of why we're sitting here talking about, hey, why is it doing what it's doing? That is part of that non-correlation. And so, yes, Bitcoin will benefit from cheap capital. It will benefit from interest rate cuts. But also, there are reasons that people are buying it that they may not buy other assets. This has been true of sound money principles for a long time. Gold has been a lower correlation than other assets. I think Bitcoin now is doing that as well. The difference is that Bitcoin is kind of gold with wings, and so it will go up a lot more than gold when they both move forward, and it will go down a lot more when they drop in price as well.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Have you ever tweeted in the morning, God, I feel like crap. It's a crappy day, and I'm not going to get at it at all today. Have you ever done?
Never.
You've never said that?
No.
What is it?
Positive mental attitude.
What is it that you tweet every morning? You tweet, it's going to be a great day. Let's
get after it relentlessly.
Let's get after it relentlessly.
Yeah.
So you've never said, God, I drank too much last night. I don't even feel like getting out of bed right now. A couple other things are happening that I'm not happy with. I'm not going to do diddly today.
The best way to avoid a hangover. When
I see that,
I don't drink.
Right. What should I do if I see? It's going to be really bad if you ever come out and say that.
If I ever say something negative in the morning, you should call me. Something's probably wrong.
I love your relentless optimism. That is great. It's positive mental attitude.
It's one way to live life, right? We live in the greatest country in the world. We've got a lot of opportunity at our feet. And if we have an optimistic attitude, then people will have the courage to go and make the world better for our children.
You haven't seen the polls. You haven't seen the polls lately, I guess. There's plenty to worry about. Thanks, Anthony.